At certain crossroads, travelers hesitate longer than necessary, not from confusion but from weight. The air feels denser, silence extends. Decisions that once seemed simple become deliberate. Some turn back, others proceed, and never return unchanged. There is no visible figure, no voice, no command, only the unmistakable sense that choice at that point carries more consequence than distance alone can explain. It begins quietly. A merchant pauses before choosing a route and senses resistance in one direction. A soldier stops at a fork in the road and feels a pull toward another. Nothing moves in the shadows, nothing speaks. Yet the moment stretches unnaturally long. Those who choose lightly regret it. Those who hesitate understand that something unseen weighs every step taken beyond that divide. Stories begin to circulate about these places. Not haunted, not cursed, but decisive. Villagers avoid traveling alone at night where roads divide. Torches burn lower, as if conserving flame in the presence of something patient. No apparition appears, no warning is given. Yet those who stand at the crossing feel observed, not judged, but measured. Measured for resolve, measured for intention. Leaders begin to notice a pattern. Decisions made after passing certain crossings alter outcomes with unusual precision. Victories align unexpectedly. Failures carry clarity rather than confusion. It is not guidance, it is awareness intensified. At the divide, options sharpen. Consequences feel immediate even before action occurs. Some begin to suspect that crossroads are not locations, but thresholds where intent becomes visible to something older than choice itself. Travelers begin leaving small offerings at the meeting of roads, not out of fear but respect. Bread, coins, oil. They do not ask for protection. They ask for clarity. Something about that place demands honesty. Lies feel heavier there. Doubt becomes audible in silence. No figure accepts the offerings, yet the practice spreads. At every divide, people sense that choice is being witnessed, even if no voice speaks aloud. Priests attempt to define what occurs at these crossings. They search for omens in smoke and patterns in flame. Nothing manifests, no prophecy is delivered. Yet those who stand there describe the same sensation, amplification. Regret becomes sharper, intention becomes undeniable. The crossroads does not alter desire, it clarifies it. And clarity, once felt, cannot be ignored without consequence. Warriors begin consulting the crossroads before battle. Not for victory, but for certainty. Some leave convinced they chose wisely. Others leave unsettled, aware they ignored something internal. The divide does not promise success. It forces awareness. Awareness demands ownership. Those who fail after choosing lightly cannot blame fate. Those who succeed after choosing deliberately speak of a presence that neither commanded nor restrained them, only revealed them. Rulers start sending messengers to stand at crossings before signing alliances. They expect signs in the sky or tremors in the earth. None arrive. What arrives instead is discomfort. Agreements that once seemed advantageous feel unstable under quiet reflection. Some treaties are abandoned. Others are signed with full awareness of risk. The divide does not interfere. It magnifies doubt, and magnified doubt exposes concealed ambition. Over time, people begin to speak of the crossroads as if it were inhabited, not by a monster, not by a guardian, by a presence that listens without speaking. Travelers claim the wind changes direction there. Flames flicker against no visible current. Animals hesitate before stepping across the divide. Nothing dramatic occurs, yet everyone agrees. At that point, something observes intention before it becomes action. The divide becomes ritualized. Torches are placed at each branch. Paths are cleared deliberately as if honoring symmetry. Those who arrive speak less and think more. No guidance is offered, yet few leave unchanged. The place does not dictate direction. It intensifies consequence. Leaders, soldiers, and wanderers alike begin to acknowledge that the crossing is not a road. It is a moment where evasion ends and ownership begins. Whispers begin to assign intention to the presence. Some claim it favors the bold, others insist it protects the cautious, yet no pattern confirms either belief. Those who choose recklessly suffer. Those who hesitate without reason lose opportunity. The crossing does not reward temperament, it exposes coherence. If intention aligns with action, outcomes stabilize. If intention fractures, consequence accelerates. The divide reflects more than it directs. Soon, travelers no longer approach the crossroads casually. They prepare themselves before arriving. Some rehearse their reasoning, others attempt to silence doubt. Yet the moment they step into the divide, rehearsed certainty weakens. Not because something challenges it, but because it becomes transparent. At that point, self-deception grows difficult. The crossing does not demand truth. It makes evasion impossible without cost. Those who ignore the weight of the crossing often speak later of missed warnings. Not voices, not signs, just a hesitation they dismissed. That hesitation becomes memory. Memory becomes regret. Others who embraced the pause describe something different. Alignment. Alignment between thought and action. The divide does not impose morality. It exposes contradiction. And contradiction, once revealed, reshapes consequence. Rituals evolve. Small statues appear near branching roads. Offerings grow more deliberate. Oil for clarity, salt for protection. Dogs linger at the edges of torchlight, watchful but calm. The crossing gains symbolism, yet its nature remains unchanged. It does not promise guidance. It intensifies awareness. Those who arrive expecting direction leave unsettled. Those who arrive prepared to confront themselves leave altered. The divide remains patient. Over time, dependency begins to form. People start believing the crossroads decides their fate. Decisions are delayed until the ritual is performed. Responsibility shifts subtly. If an outcome fails, blame falls on the crossing, not the choice. The presence becomes a convenient witness for human uncertainty. It never claimed authority, yet authority is projected onto it, and projection slowly transforms perception into myth. Merchants refuse to travel without stopping first. Generals delay campaigns until the torches are lit. Lovers seek approval before commitment. The crossing becomes prerequisite rather than reflection. What was once a moment of awareness turns into dependence. Dependence alters balance. When people outsource certainty, their resolve weakens. The presence does not intervene, it observes. But observation misunderstood begins to distort intention. Blame begins to shift more openly. When ventures fail, the crossing is accused of silence. When alliances collapse, the ritual is declared incomplete. Responsibility erodes gradually. The divide never promised protection, it only amplified awareness. Yet awareness is uncomfortable. It is easier to fault the place than confront flawed reasoning. The presence becomes scapegoat for decisions made without coherence, and distortion deepens. Soon, some begin claiming the crossroads favors certain outcomes. They invent signs where none were given. Smoke drifting left becomes omen. A torch flickering twice becomes warning. Interpretation replaces introspection. The divide becomes less about self-examination and more about external validation. The presence remains unchanged, but belief shifts. And belief, once detached from responsibility, begins shaping behavior more than awareness ever did. Rulers start consulting interpreters who claim to read the divide correctly. Fees are collected, instructions are issued. The crossing, once silent and reflective, becomes theater. Authority is projected onto those who promise certainty. The presence does not resist, it does not correct, it simply remains. But what was once a threshold of ownership becomes instrument of manipulation, and manipulation thrives where ambiguity is misunderstood. The more people rely on intermediaries, the less they confront themselves. Decisions once weighed internally are outsourced to ritual and interpretation. The crossing becomes crowded with expectation. Candles burn brighter, but clarity dims. The presence never demanded devotion, it demanded awareness. Awareness replaced by dependency creates fragility. Fragility seeks reassurance. Reassurance invites control, and control distorts the very moment the divide was meant to preserve. Some begin to question whether the presence at the crossing ever intended to be invoked at all. The divide does not summon, it does not instruct, it does not demand offerings. Yet offerings accumulate, authority gathers around silence. The more people seek certainty there, the less they cultivate it within themselves. The crossing becomes a mirror no longer used for reflection, but for confirmation. Confirmation weakens judgment. In time, fear replaces respect. Travelers arrive anxious, convinced a wrong step invites punishment. The divide never threatened them. It never enforced consequence. Yet fear reshapes perception. Where there was pause, there is now dread. Where there was awareness, there is superstition. The presence remains constant, but interpretation evolves. And evolving interpretation shifts power from choice to belief. Belief, when untethered, breeds distortion. Communities begin constructing shrines at the crossing, formalizing what was once instinctive. Symbols appear carved in stone. Torches are arranged with precision. The divide gains identity through ritual. Yet identity imposed is not identity chosen. The presence never claimed form. Form is assigned to satisfy expectation. Expectation seeks control. Control seeks predictability. Predictability weakens responsibility, and responsibility, once diminished, alters every choice made thereafter. As the shrines multiply, so does certainty about what the crossing represents. It is declared guardian, judge, even arbiter of destiny. Few remember that it never spoke, it never commanded, it only revealed hesitation. But revelation is uncomfortable. It is easier to worship a symbol than confront one's own uncertainty. The divide remains unchanged. Yet around it, narrative solidifies into doctrine, and doctrine resists reflection. What began as amplification of awareness now becomes institutionalized authority. Priests claim proximity grants interpretation. Decisions are delayed until approval is secured. Leaders cite the crossing as justification. The presence never endorsed any decree. It never promised outcome. Yet its silence is translated into approval. Silence, once reflective, becomes exploited, and exploitation reshapes function into power. Power invites distortion. Distortion invites fear. The divide senses the shift, though it does not resist. It has no will to defend, no need to correct. Yet the weight at the crossing grows heavier, not from consequence, but from expectation. Where clarity once sharpened intention, now ritual clouds it. Those who arrive no longer pause to examine themselves, they pause to seek endorsement. Endorsement replaces ownership, and ownership, once abandoned, weakens resolve. Whispers begin to change tone. The presence is no longer described as silent witness. It is called manipulator, sorceress, shadow at the edge of flame. The crossing, once neutral, becomes feared. Fear spreads faster than understanding. Those who misjudge their own decisions search for external blame. The divide absorbs accusation without reply. Yet accusation shapes reputation, and reputation reshapes memory. With fear comes embellishment. Stories claim a figure walking between paths at night, torches said to burn blue when she passes, dogs howling at unseen command. None of these accounts align, none repeat consistently, yet repetition of rumor grants it solidity. The divide, once defined by silence, now carries image. Image simplifies complexity, simplicity distorts nuance, and distortion hardens into belief. Once an image forms, devotion intensifies. Some kneel not for clarity but for favor. Offerings increase, symbols grow elaborate. The crossing becomes territory rather than threshold. Territory invites guardianship. Guardianship implies will. The presence never claimed either. Yet belief insists on personality. Personality demands motive. Motive assigns intention, and intention, once imagined, replaces the original function entirely. As the image solidifies, the divide is no longer seen as neutral ground. It is portrayed as domain. Domain suggests ownership. Ownership suggests control. Control suggests judgment. None of these were ever present, yet repetition transforms suggestion into certainty. Those who once paused to confront themselves now approach expecting verdict. The crossing remains unchanged, but expectation reshapes experience, and experience reshapes myth. Fear sharpens the stories further. They speak of three faces watching from different paths, of torches held in steady hands no wind can extinguish, of keys that open more than doors. Each detail adds weight to the legend, yet the original function remains untouched. The crossing never imposed choice. It only revealed hesitation, but revelation misunderstood becomes mystery, and mystery, once feared, demands explanation. Explanation arrives through invention. They describe her as guardian of thresholds, mistress of shadows, sovereign of hidden paths. Titles multiply to contain uncertainty. The more they define her, the less they confront themselves. She becomes answer rather than mirror. The divide no longer exposes contradiction. It absorbs projection. Projection solidifies into doctrine. Doctrine resists doubt, and doubt, once suppressed, transforms into superstition. Soon her presence is invoked in matters beyond the crossing. Birth, death, betrayal, ambition. She is summoned where responsibility feels heavy. The divide expands conceptually, stretching into every threshold of life. What was once a moment between roads becomes symbol of every decision. Symbol magnifies influence. Influence invites reverence. Reverence distorts origin, and distortion ensures few remember what she truly represented. They begin to fear her in the dark. Children are warned that she walks at night. Travelers hurry past intersections, avoiding eye contact with flame. Her image becomes layered with secrecy and suspicion. Yet she never pursued them. She never stalked the road. The crossing never moved. Fear simply required a figure to inhabit uncertainty. And uncertainty, when misunderstood, becomes shadow rather than reflection. With time, her name is spoken openly at the crossing, not whispered but invoked. Hecate. It carries weight, shaped by fear and fascination. Few recall that she never demanded allegiance. Fewer remember that she never dictated outcome. Yet the name now defines the divide. Identity replaces function. Function once centered on awareness becomes myth wrapped in shadow. And shadow, once accepted, obscures origin. Once her name settles into language, interpretation multiplies. She is no longer only the presence at the divide. She becomes guardian of secrets, keeper of night paths, watcher between worlds. Titles expand to contain uncertainty. The more she is defined, the less her origin is remembered. The crossing fades into background, legend replaces function, and legend prefers shadow over self-examination. At temples, her image appears holding torches and keys. The keys are said to unlock hidden realms, the torches to guide through darkness. Yet the original threshold required neither tool. It required pause. Pause demanded honesty. Now ritual replaces pause. Tools replace introspection. Devotion replaces deliberation. The divide survives in symbol, but its original weight grows distant beneath ornament and fear. Over time, the crossing becomes quieter, not because belief fades, but because it hardens. People arrive already convinced of what awaits them. The pause shortens, the wait dulls. What once forced confrontation with intention is now bypassed by expectation. Ritual replaces reflection. Familiarity replaces tension. The divide still exists, but its function is muted by certainty. When choice no longer unsettles, consequence returns later, displaced and harder to trace. As certainty replaces hesitation, Decisions lose their moment of weight. People cross without pause, trusting ritual instead of reflection. Consequence does not vanish. It relocates. Choices made without confrontation return later, detached from origin. Failure feels sudden. Outcomes feel unfair. Few remember when responsibility was avoided. The crossing remains unchanged. What altered was the willingness to face it, and avoidance always collects its cost elsewhere. Her name continues to circulate, but her function fades beneath interpretation. The divide no longer feels like threshold. It feels like territory claimed by legend. People arrive seeking signs instead of clarity. They wait for confirmation instead of examining intent. The torches still burn, the paths still split, yet the silence that once demanded ownership is now filled with expectation. Expectation weakens reflection, and weakened reflection distorts choice. With time, the crossing becomes ceremonial. Festivals are held beneath her name. Songs are written of her power. Fear softens into tradition. Tradition hardens into habit. Habit rarely provokes awareness. The divide once forced confrontation with self. Now it offers comfort through repetition. Yet repetition cannot replace responsibility. Beneath celebration, hesitation still exists. It simply goes unacknowledged, and unacknowledged doubt shapes outcomes silently. Some still feel the original weight when standing at the divide. They notice how silence thickens before decision, but their awareness is drowned by inherited narrative. They are told what the moment means before they experience it. Interpretation arrives before introspection. The crossing becomes filtered through expectation. Expectation dulls perception, and dulled perception weakens the very clarity the threshold once provided. In distant regions, her image grows darker. She is blamed for misfortune, credited for hidden knowledge, feared for her proximity to death. The crossing becomes associated with endings rather than decisions. Endings feel dramatic. Decisions feel mundane. Drama captures memory more easily. Memory reshapes legacy, and legacy, once reshaped, defines identity. Few recall that she never governed death. She governed hesitation, and hesitation is quieter than myth prefers. Eventually, her name is invoked before choices that have already been made. People seek validation, not clarity. The divide becomes symbolic approval rather than reflective pause. Ritual continues, offerings remain, but the original confrontation with intention weakens. What was once a moment of ownership becomes habit. Habit numbs awareness. Numbed awareness delays consequence, and delayed consequence returns with greater force when finally recognized. Only a few still understand the divide as it was. They approach without expectation, without plea, without fear. They stand in silence until their intention sharpens. They do not ask for signs. They accept ownership. In that moment, the crossing regains its weight, not because she intervenes, but because they confront themselves. Her name remains. Her legend expands. Yet her original function survives only in those who pause deliberately. Over generations, the crossing loses authority without losing place. Roads still meet, torches still burn. People slow their steps, though fewer understand why. The weight remains subtle, felt only as unease before decision. She does not reclaim meaning. She does not correct distortion. She waits. Choice never disappears. It only delays recognition. And when recognition arrives, it comes alone, at a threshold where no legend can decide for you. In the end, the divide was never about guidance. It was about confrontation. Those who approached expecting direction left disappointed. Those who arrived prepared to examine themselves left altered. Her name endured, layered with shadow and symbol. But beneath every title and torch, the function remained constant. A moment before action, a pause before commitment, a silence where intention becomes visible, and in that silence, responsibility cannot hide. Legends continue to expand around her, but the crossing itself remains unchanged. It does not glow, it does not whisper, it does not judge. It simply divides. Every path carries consequence. Every step commits direction. She was never architect of fate. She was the boundary where denial ends. Those who understand this approach differently, they do not ask for safety, they ask for clarity, and clarity once seen cannot be unseen. Her name survives in shadowed corners of memory, invoked at thresholds of doubt. Yet the crossing needs no invocation. It exists wherever decision becomes irreversible. She does not force direction. She reveals weight. That weight is neither curse nor blessing. It is awareness sharpened to precision. Many avoid it, some confront it. But every life, at some point, reaches a divide where silence expands and intention becomes unavoidable. And there she remains. In time, her legend drifts further from its origin. She becomes symbol of night, of mystery, of unseen forces guiding hidden paths. Few recall that she never guided. She witnessed. Witnessing carries no control, only presence. Presence intensifies choice. When choice intensifies, consequence follows swiftly. People may cloak her in ritual or fear, but the divide remains neutral. It does not command, it clarifies, and clarification is rarely comfortable. Even now, when a person stands before a decision that alters everything, there is a moment that feels suspended. Breath slows, sound fades, thought sharpens. That moment is the crossing. Not the road, not the torch, not the shrine. The crossing is the threshold inside awareness where direction becomes irreversible. Her legend survives because that moment survives, and that moment does not belong to myth, it belongs to choice. Generations may reinterpret her, soften her image, or darken it further. None of that alters the threshold itself. The divide exists wherever consequence cannot be undone. She was never architect of fate. She stood where intention solidified. Those who feared her misunderstood reflection as judgment. Those who revered her misunderstood awareness as protection. She offered neither. She offered weight, and weight forces decision. She was never meant to be followed, feared, or worshipped. The crossing existed to interrupt certainty, not replace it. Where choices feel inevitable, weight vanishes. Where weight vanishes, responsibility erodes. Her presence restored weight, not through command but through pause. When pause is honored, intention sharpens. When ignored, consequence disperses. The divide does not punish error, it exposes it. And exposure, once felt, cannot be undone by myth or ritual. Over centuries, her image absorbs every fear humans project onto uncertainty. She becomes keeper of shadows, companion of spirits, guardian of unseen passages. Each title drifts further from the road where two paths divide. Yet the threshold persists. Whenever a person must choose without guarantee, the moment expands. Breath shortens, silence deepens. That expansion is the crossing, not a shrine, not a curse, a pause where evasion collapses and intention must declare itself. Some still approach the divide without superstition. They stand quietly and let doubt surface instead of burying it. In that stillness, they recognize the weight they once tried to escape. No omen appears, no hand guides them, only awareness sharpens. That sharpness is uncomfortable, but it clarifies direction. When they finally step forward, they do so knowing consequence belongs to them, and ownership once accepted stabilizes what fear once distorted. Those who refuse that pause move quickly, convinced momentum protects them. It does not. Avoided reflection returns later as confusion. Paths chosen without confrontation splinter under pressure. The crossing never disappears. It reappears internally, forcing re-evaluation when retreat is no longer possible. She was never architect of regret. Regret grows where awareness was dismissed. The threshold offers one chance, to see clearly before motion becomes irreversible. Her legend survives because thresholds never vanish. Every generation inherits its own crossings. Technology changes, empires rise and fall, yet the moment before irreversible decision remains unchanged. Some call it intuition, others call it fear. Few recognize it as responsibility concentrated. She stands within that concentration, not as ruler, but as boundary. Boundaries define direction. Direction shapes destiny. And destiny, once chosen, does not negotiate afterward. In quiet hours, when roads empty and torches burn low, the divide feels closest to its origin. No festivals, no chants, only wind crossing from one path to another. It is there that the threshold regains purity. No worship, no accusation, just weight suspended before motion. She does not demand belief, she demands awareness. And awareness, when faced honestly, becomes the difference between choice and excuse. Her name may shift with time, softened or darkened by retelling, but the crossing remains indifferent to narrative. It does not care how she is described. It persists wherever decision divides future from possibility. Those who approach lightly often blame fate later. Those who pause deliberately rarely speak of destiny. They speak of responsibility. And responsibility, once embraced, reduces fear. Fear thrives in avoidance. Clarity dissolves it. Eventually, even her legend grows quieter. Temples weather, shrines erode. The stories remain, but less urgently. What endures is not fear nor devotion. It is the moment before irreversible choice. That moment does not belong to ritual. It belongs to awareness sharpened by consequence. She is remembered not because she ruled fate, but because she embodied the pause where evasion ends and direction begins. And that pause still exists. Those who understand her role stop asking for signs. They stop seeking confirmation. They recognize that the crossing never promised certainty. It offered confrontation. Confrontation with doubt. Confrontation with intention. Confrontation with consequence. Her legend may cast shadow, but the threshold remains clear. Every life contains moments where direction solidifies. In those moments, no shrine answers. Only awareness decides, and awareness carries no excuse. In the end, she was never architect of destiny, nor keeper of hidden fate. She stood at the precise instant when intention becomes irreversible, not judge, not savior, witness. At every divide where future separates from possibility, she exists within the pause before commitment. Legends may darken her name or soften her image. It changes nothing. The threshold does not command. It clarifies, and clarity binds action to consequence without excuse. Even when forgotten in temples and removed from spoken prayer, the threshold remains. It appears wherever decision hardens into direction. No shrine announces it, no ritual defines it. The moment simply expands, heavy and unmistakable. That expansion is her domain, not in control but in presence. Presence sharpens awareness, awareness strengthens ownership, and ownership determines whether consequence becomes lesson or regret. The crossing does not punish, it reflects. She does not follow those who leave the crossing. She does not intervene once direction is chosen. Her function ends the moment commitment begins. Yet consequence carries the memory of that pause. Those who honored it move with steadier resolve. Those who dismissed it often revisit doubt later when reversal is impossible. The threshold offers no second negotiation. It offers clarity once. After that, motion belongs entirely to the one who steps forward. Some will continue to imagine her as shadow moving between worlds, as keeper of secrets hidden from ordinary sight. Those images comfort the uneasy. Mystery feels easier than responsibility, but the crossing requires no spectacle. It requires stillness. In that stillness, intention loses disguise. No audience watches, no deity intervenes. Only awareness stands present. And awareness, when confronted honestly, strips excuse from action and binds direction to consequence. She remains where division sharpens focus. Not in darkness alone, but in every moment, choice divides one future from another. Roads change, civilizations evolve, yet the structure of decision persists. Pause, wait, commitment. That sequence defines the crossing. Her legend survives because that sequence survives. When intention aligns with action, consequence stabilizes. When it fractures, regret follows. The threshold does not create fate. It reveals ownership before fate unfolds. Those who recognize the crossing for what it is no longer fear it. They approach without plea and without superstition. They allow hesitation to surface instead of suppressing it. In that allowance, clarity sharpens. Clarity is not comfort, it is precision. Precision narrows direction until motion becomes deliberate. She does not demand reverence, she demands awareness. And awareness transforms uncertainty into conscious choice rather than accidental consequence. Over centuries, her legend will continue to shift, bending with culture and fear. Yet the threshold resists reinterpretation. It exists wherever consequence becomes irreversible. No shrine is required, no invocation is necessary. The crossing manifests in silence before action. Some call it instinct, others call it doubt, few call it responsibility. She stands within that instant, not commanding, but witnessing the moment intention commits to form. And once formed, it does not dissolve. In every era, people attempt to escape that instant. They rush decisions to avoid weight. They delay choices to avoid ownership, yet the crossing cannot be bypassed. It reappears in different forms until intention aligns with action. She does not chase them. She waits where direction crystallizes. That crystallization is the true threshold. Once reached, excuse dissolves. And when excuse dissolves, responsibility stands alone, undeniable and permanent. In the end, she was never the ruler of fate or the architect of hidden paths. She was the stillness where intention becomes irreversible. Every life reaches that divide, not once, but repeatedly. Roads separate, weight gathers, silence expands. She does not choose, she does not judge, she reveals. And when revelation is honored, direction becomes deliberate. When ignored, consequence arrives unexamined. The crossing remains. Choice belongs to those who stand within it.